Hello everyone, we have made it to Unit 3. In this unit, we will talk about industrialization and the urbanization of the United States, which occurred from about 1865 into the early 1900s. This also coincides with our previous units, Reconstruction and Westward Expansion. Clearly, a lot was going on in our country post-Civil War. We will begin with the factors that supported and created the right environment for industrialization, and then move on to the leaders of industry and the big businesses that arose in this time period. We will examine the struggles that the United States faced as a result of industrialization, and finally, the impact of immigration. In this lesson, we will strictly focus on the factors of business growth in the era of industrialization. As you are taking notes, make sure you are recording information that helps to answer this essential question, as well as important vocabulary. What were the factors of business growth in the era of industrialization? The first two terms that are important to understand are rural and urban. Rural refers to the country or farmland that made up much of the United States until this point in history. The population in these areas is very spread out, with most area being covered by farmland. Urban refers to the densely populated city centers that began to develop in this time period. Think New York City or Chicago. And the last big term that you need to know for this lesson is industrialization. If you listen to the word, you can hear the word industry within it. That's because industrialization is the development of industries in a country or region. Industries are groups of related businesses. For example, Food Lion, Kroger, and Harris Teeter are all individual businesses within the grocery industry. Prior to the Civil War, the country was largely rural, with some urban centers on the East Coast. However, the mechanization of farming changed that. The invention of the reaper improved the efficiency of farming while simultaneously decreasing the need for labor. With fewer jobs in farming, even as people were moving into the West, people began to look to more urban areas for a steady source of income. And at the same time that jobs were decreasing in rural areas due to mechanization of farming, the need for people in urban areas was increasing. Factories were being built, which meant an increased need for labor. People worked on assembly lines, which gave each person a single task in the overall production and decreased the cost of production. Factories were located near rivers and railroads, so their products could be transported to markets across the country. On that same note, another major factor that encouraged industrialization in the United States was the expansion of the railroads. As we learned in Unit 2, the Transcontinental Railroad connected the United States like it had never been before. Now, instead of only being able to sell to the people within the community or even the state, it was feasible for a company to ship its products all around the country using our railroad system. This created what we call a national market, meaning the whole country was the consumer base for an industry. So as we can see from the last few slides, industrial development transformed how people consumed goods around the country. In fact, almost 100 years before you could buy whatever you wanted off of Amazon, you could buy goods out of a mail order catalog. The ability to ship goods anywhere in the U.S. revolutionized how companies advertised to their consumers. People bought everything from clothing, tools, and home goods to toys and hunting rifles by mailing in their order and a check, and then waiting a few weeks for its arrival. It is important to note that a major reason businesses were so successful in filling factory jobs was the large workforce made available by the immigration of people from all over the world into the United States. There was a large influx of immigration in this time period, largely from places like Great Britain, Ireland, Italy, and Greece. These people mostly lived in urban areas near the ports where they arrived. Lastly, Important financial resources, including private investors, banks, and the federal government, funded the development of infrastructure in urban areas to support the success of industry during this time. The infrastructure is all of the basic physical structures necessary for everything to run. This includes buildings, roads, power supply, and more. Much of the United States was transformed from rural farmland to big cities in a matter of years thanks to the money put up by these different groups. So now that we've reached the end of the lesson, take a moment to reflect. Can you answer the essential question for today? What were the factors of business growth in the era of industrialization? You should be able to list 6.